What does growth mean for you? So I've been reflecting on this question for this video, and growth for me means striking a balance between the personal and the universal. So what I mean by that is understanding my place in the world, and how that relates to those around me. And not just the people around me, but the non-human beings, the places, the environment that surround me, and also having an understanding of the tension points and the sticky points between myself and those that I relate with, and understanding how those sticky points arose, why they arose, and what I can do to shift and adapt, and kind of like alter my positioning. So that's more of the abstract explanation. I hope throughout the course of this video, what that means for my actual lived experience might become more clear.
So growth, what is it to me? Growth has always been the process of learning more about myself in relation to others and my environments. I see it, I guess, as a multifaceted experience made up of different elements, such as my spirituality, my heritage, my relationships, my professional life, my physical health, just to name a few. I've learned over the years that I am rarely able to sustain growth in terms of the intensity and the rate in all of those areas at the same time, and I've learned that that's okay. Sometimes you have to put one or two elements on the back burner to focus on nourishing one part of your life, and I do believe that in different parts of your life, there's a different season and there's different fruits and different areas that you need to focus on, I guess. So yeah, life is a balancing act.
Briefly share an experience in your life that you've grown from. So I, a while ago, was seeing this man who shall remain nameless. And there was one instance where I went over to his place, having clarified beforehand that I didn't really want to get intimate. And of course, one thing led to another, and we did end up getting intimate. And I felt super, super horrible after this, and couldn't really understand why. And it wasn't until years later, even after we had separated, that I realized it's because I hadn't spoken up for myself, or I hadn't actually defined what I wanted. Basically, I allowed things to go further than I wanted them to, because in my mind I was like, oh, this is what a good girlfriend does. And it wasn't actually what I wanted, it was what I thought in the moment that he wanted. Whether he wanted that or not, I have no idea. But I think once that realization came, that was like a really big growing period for me, because I so often prioritize other people over myself, which to be clear, I think is an important thing. But I think in that moment, and in many moments in my life, it had come to the expense of understanding or protecting myself so that I could show up for someone else.
I guess I'll go with an experience I had during my year abroad for university. So my third year of university, I was working in Sicily. I did like a work placement abroad, and that year was so difficult for so many reasons. And it's like one of those years as well where, you know, you're young, you're at university, it's your year abroad, and everyone kind of just expects you to automatically have an amazing time. That you kind of feel that any other narrative is just not valid, really. There were a number of circumstances that made that a really difficult year, but a year of so much growth as well. The first one being that I was living in quite a toxic environment for about a period of 4 months, and after I moved out, after those 4 months, I was then living completely alone, and that was the first time that I had lived completely alone with no flatmates, no neighbours in this weird apartment building that was literally made of offices and my one house. And so that was in itself another challenge of learning to be by myself and dealing with those feelings of loneliness. On top of that, I had a couple of health issues and was also in a relationship that was essentially deteriorating, a long distance relationship, which made it even 10 times harder to deal with. And yeah, just all of those different things coming together made it a really stressful time for me. It's probably one of the hardest years of my life. I don't really look back to that year with a lot of fondness, except for the moments of growth that those opportunities presented to me. That year did teach me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about my inner strength, my resilience, my ability to have patience if I just try and exercise it. But also it taught me a lot about my weaknesses as well. And especially in that moment of feeling isolated and just dealing with all these different things so far away from my family and my support network, the weakness that I stayed in that relationship, that I should have ended a lot sooner, but was selfishly staying in it because I wanted the comfort of having someone at the end of a phone call or at the end of a text message. But it was a year of immense growth. I think it really strengthened my relationship with God, with my spirituality, with my religion. Above all, it really drove home the lesson that the moments in which we grow the most are often the most difficult, and that in order to grow, we need to get comfortable with the discomfort that comes with the opportunities for growth.
How have you applied those lessons gained from that incident moving forward? So I think from that experience with this unnamed man, I have really made it a point every time I enter a new relationship. And right now, I'm mostly talking about romantic relationships or potential romantic relationships, although I think it does happen on a more subconscious level in friendships or platonic connections. But I really try to identify what I want out of the situation or what I'm willing to give, so that I just think it's better for open communication when that's the case. Because if I'm not clear on what I want or what I'm willing to give, then I feel like I'm much more likely to not be able to show up for that person because I'm just not clear on how I can show up for that person. So I think obviously it's not perfect. I still make mistakes sometimes, but that's one way that the lessons I've learned from that experience have showed up in my life still.
The biggest lesson I took away from that whole year was learning what active patience looks like. It isn't being passive. It isn't sitting around moping for yourself and crying over situations that won't change, that you have no power to change. But rather it's being proactive, and I think part of it comes with acceptance and accepting that there are things that you can't change. So the only thing that you can change really in that situation is your mindset and how you approach it and your attitude and the small things that you're able to change to make whatever you're going through bearable. There's a beautiful quote I came across by Viktor Franklin, and it goes along the lines of everything can be taken from a man or from a person except for one thing, the last of human freedom, which is the ability to choose one's attitude and to choose one's way. And I think that was the biggest lesson that I learned from this, that in the circumstances where I feel like I can't do anything, the greatest thing that I can do and the greatest liberating thing that I can do for myself is to accept the situation and then choose which way I'm going to approach it, from a negative mindset, from a mindset of scarcity, or a positive mindset and a mindset of abundance that is going to come from the situation.
When you think back on moments of growth, are there any underlying factors that catalyze that in your life? Growth occurs out of discomfort, out of feeling uncomfortable. And every time you feel uncomfortable, you are faced with a choice. You either face that discomfort and you process it and you figure out how to proceed or how to shift your behavior, or you can ignore it and just kind of like not really deal with it. And, you know, to be clear, these are my opinions, and this is how I've learned to approach discomfort in my life. Of course, it's never perfect. There are many times when I choose to just ignore my discomfort or distract myself from it. But I try as much as possible to really embrace that discomfort, because I think that's the only way. Like when you experience discomfort, that is everything around you, the people, the places, the beings around you, kind of like telling you that something is out of alignment. And especially when it comes with patterns, when you repeatedly make the same kind of decisions, when you repeatedly make the same mistakes in life, that is everything around you telling you that something needs to change. So yeah, I think that those have been some kind of underlying things that I've noticed in every moment of growth in my life.
There are definitely moments which I see being reborn again and again, and I think the reason why I'm presented with similar trials, if not the exact same situation, is because I haven't learned from the previous experience, or that previous opportunity for growth. I haven't fully taken that lesson on board, and if I do think I have, well, then I just see it as a trial to really confirm, how am I actually going to change the way that I respond to this based on my previous experience with something similar. And I think that is the process of life. I think things keep on reincarnating until we learn what we're meant to learn from them, and once you have learnt the lesson from it, then the next time it presents itself, it shouldn't be a trial, because you would have mastered your emotions, you would have mastered your response in that situation, and then the trial is no longer there. I think most of the trial, most of the pain and suffering in these situations do tend to be self-inflicted. And when you really think about it, I don't think we're ever really upset for the reasons that we think we are, or we're ever really hurt for the reasons we think we are, if we're being honest with ourselves. And I think we give so much control and so much power to other people or to external things in the situation, that reclaiming some of that in the way we approach things has been a really liberating experience for me. So I do think these moments are here to always remind us and to always trial us until the next thing. And this reminds me of a beautiful quote by John Keats, which I'm going to read. He's one of my favourite poets. "Call the world, if you please, the veil of soul-making. Then you will find out the use of the world. I can scarcely express what I dimly perceive, and yet I think I perceive it. That you may judge the more clearly, I will put it in the most homely form possible. I will call the world a school, instituted for the purpose of teaching little children to read. I will call the human heart the hornbook, used in that school. And I will call the child able to read the soul, made from the school and its hornbook. Do you not see how necessary a world of pains and trouble is, to school an intelligence and make it a soul? A place where the heart must feel and suffer in 1,000 diverse ways. As various as the lives of men are, so various become their souls, and thus does God make individual beings, souls, identical souls, of the sparks of his own essence. This appears to me a faint sketch of a system of salvation, which does not affront our reason and humanity." So those are the experiences that make you grow. I guess it's never the easiest, and I don't think it's meant to be. The process of finding your authentic self through those experiences of growth is one of the most rewarding journeys, I think, and one that comes with the sacrifice of letting go of things that you believe in, of attitudes, of old habits. And yeah, thank you guys for taking the time out to reflect with us on the topic of growth. As ever, we always want to hear from you guys. If you have experiences that you're willing to share in the comments, or drop us an email or any of our social media platforms, a time when you have grown and what you've learned, I guess, through your experiences of growth about yourself and about others and the world that we live in. But I think that's everything. Until the next one, I hope you're having a fab day, and we'll see you soon. Ciao!